Champions League predictions time. The draw is out, and who better to do these predictions than with Breton? How are you doing, my guy?
Oh, yeah. I'm doing great. I mean, we're right in the thick of the holiday season right now, and it's hard to believe that we're going to have to wait for what? 3 more months, 2 more months before this hits us. A lot can change from now and again, or now until then. But I'll tell you what, these are some juicy matchups. And the road to Wembley has already begun, but now it's heated up. And what is it? June 1st is the final. There's a lot of football to be played from now until then. So yeah, let's get into it. But Alex, before we get into it, I do have to ask you to pour one last drink out for that group stage, that Champions League group stage that we will likely not see again anytime soon. Next season, we will make the switch to the Swiss League format, which is one big Champions League, of which you will get your round of 16 after 10 games, qualifying through with more qualifying home and away matchups, but we will no longer see those beautiful groups of 4 ever again. Which is kind of sad, right?
Oof, it is really sad. It's true. And you're mentioning the final, which is going to be a special date, and the final is going to be in London. Are we going to see a London team in the final, Breton? Because first prediction time here, Porto against Arsenal. We'll be giving percentages in all of the games, but let us know down below in the comments your percentage of each knockout game in the Champions League 2. And don't forget to like this video for more predictions just like this one. Early.
Yep.
Arsenal-Porto is a mad one in my view. London, I see a lot of people saying the Champions League favorites are definitely Bayern, Real Madrid, Man City, and Arsenal. Putting Arsenal in that bracket right now, for me, is a mistake. It's a youthful team, not an experienced team like the other 3 clubs I mentioned. They got to prove themselves. And a good way is to beat Porto in their first knockout game in the Champions League with Arteta ever since the Wenger era. It's their first time in the Champions League. So it's not going to be easy, Breton. Not going to be easy.
No. But it is 4 years of Mikel Arteta in charge of Arsenal, and this is that next step, right? This is the next hump he's got to get over. Obviously, that in the Premier League. And a fun little factoid for you, Alex. The last time Manchester United finished bottom of their Champions League group, which was back in 2005, 2006, Arsenal went all the way to the final of the Champions League. And while that's great and all, just to bring us back down to earth, yin and yang, if you will, Arsenal have the most Champions League round of 16 exits in the history of the competition with 9. So, which Arsenal is going to show up? But this is the first one where it is, in fact, Mikel Arteta's Arsenal. This is part of the project. What are we on now? Phase 3 of 5? Phase 4 of 5?
I think we're phase 4.
This is... Yeah, phase 4. This is where it begins, right? This is that consistency of the upper echelon of competition, and it's whether or not Arsenal are going to be able to do it, and I think they will. I do think they will. I mean, they had the best goal differential in their group. They looked relatively solid in almost every game they played, save the loss against Lens. And they want revenge against any Portuguese team that they can get revenge against, because it was last season, I believe, that it was Sporting that knocked them out of the Europa League. So they're going to go after the northern Portuguese folk this time. But it is pretty amazing to me. I mean, Porto, this will be 20 years to the day, I believe, that Jose Mourinho's Porto won the Champions League, when they in 2024, when they finally take the field against each other. And I just don't see this as strong of a Porto team, obviously. But they do have right now Venderson Galeno, right? 4 goals, 3 assists. He's tied at the top with Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane with 7 goal involvements in all the Champions League. So good on him.
It's true, but Porto did lose to Benfica and to Sporting in this beginning of the season in the Portuguese League. The Portuguese League is being a mad one this season. Sporting, Benfica, Porto, and even Sporting Club Braga can win the league. But Sporting, in my view, played the best football. And look, Trubin. Trubin is a wonderful
Oh, yeah.
keeper, but that's another conversation. But staying on the Arsenal Porto, I want to say this Arsenal team is the undisputed favorite against Porto. This Arsenal team has world-class potential players with Odegaard, Saka, Saliba. Declan Rice for me is already world-class because he won that European trophy last season. So now is the time where they prove themselves, and it's not more potential. It's world-class, and that's it. Punt final. This is where you do it in the biggest competition in Europe. So I'm with you. I think Arsenal, Porto in the Champions League, I'll put 75% chance for Arsenal to win and 25% for Porto. Why? Because there's an experienced manager at Porto. There's a manager that's already won 24 games in the Champions League. He's played 48, but Porto doesn't have the same budget as other big leagues. And he's won 10 titles at Porto since 2017. Sérgio Conceição, a great manager that Porto has. But yes, I do you agree with my percentage?
I think it's fair. I think it is very fair. If we're going the percentage route, 75-25 in favor of Arsenal. That makes sense. I think obviously the leg at Estadio do Dragão is the one that's going to set the tone. If Porto can shock them there and they can hold on, obviously at the Emirates, if you put their feet to the fire, that's the only way Arsenal's going to bend potentially. And I don't necessarily see that happening. But Gabriel Jesus is going to be a big part of their story in the knockout rounds. I mean, I guess you can say Gabriel Jesus and now Kai Havertz, who is apparently scoring goals and has decided that is something he wants as part of his repertoire from here on out. So, yeah, I think Arsenal will get through here, but it is going to be a tough go of it.
I'm seeing the teams here. For me, the best keepers in the world. If you see the podcast, weekly podcasts out every Monday, people. We've said Alisson, Ter Stegen, Mike Maignan, Courtois, and I see the teams in this Champions League. Porto has one of the best keepers in the Champions League. Only Ter Stegen, I confidently say ahead in Barcelona, is a better goalkeeper than Diogo Costa. Diogo Costa is no doubt, for me, top 7 goalkeeper in the world right now. And I don't see any other team but Barca with better goalkeepers playing in the Champions League. And even Ederson, maybe. Diogo Costa versus Ederson is a debate you will see real soon, because he's got to be it's very hard for Diogo Costa to stay 2 more seasons in Portugal. But if it happens, it's phenomenal. And my last thing on Arsenal, it's if Arsenal in January get a CDM like Douglas Luiz and Tropaninha and get a striker like Osimhen or even Tony, we're talking here of a team that can win the Champions League. This is not just the Premier League. And this is where Arteta can make something happen, historic happen, and which will then surpass maybe this season Guardiola. Just in the season. Okay, I'm not saying as a manager, but just in that season, he maybe will be considered the best manager in the Premier League and will get the award in the end of the season.
Well,
it's a statement.
Well, wait. We need a trophy first. We'll see.
Exactly.
We'll see. But yeah. I also believe that they need to address the flanks. They need to address fullback. So I mean, that's the thing here is there are some clubs within this round of 16 that don't have the room, the financial muscle necessarily, or the financial acuity to go out and grab that bolt-on addition to an 11 that is already incredibly formidable. So Arsenal very much does, and that is going to be all that front office, all that office making those best decisions from here on out to see whether or not they can go far in this. But hey, I kind of disagree with you on the Diogo Costa part. I mean, if Donnarumma's in goal, I can't count him out, although yes, he's been kind of a but Jan Sommer's been phenomenal in the Champions League so far, and I know he steps up at big moments. I think he's leading the Champions League in goals prevented at the moment. Yanni Oblak, I mean, there are some really good goalkeepers remaining in this. But yes, in terms of the youthful goalkeepers, because Diogo Costa's, 24? Might have just turned 25? Okay. I do agree with you in that sense. But We still think Porto long shot Arsenal's going to make their way through this, correct?
For sure, 25% on
Yeah.
Porto right now. And PSG Real Sociedad would be. I'm very interested to see your thoughts on this one. My initial thoughts, it's PSG, it's a mandatory win, not just for the club, but for Mbappe too. PSG should be happy for this draw. Why? Because they faced in the past 2 years Bayern Munich and Real Madrid. And seeing Real Sociedad makes them favorites. But listen, this is one of the best midfields in the world playing right now. Mikel Merino, Zubimendi, and Brais Mendes. But once again, Luis Enrique, new strikers, new CDM, new rebuild, a new team with PSG. They must win this game, in my view.
Yeah, I got to throw Mikel Merino in that midfield mix as well, but also the defense. Oh, you did? I missed that. No, the defense as well. I mean, I believe, let's see, I just want to make sure that I get this correctly. Yeah, they have conceded the least goals in the whole entire UCL group stage. We're looking at 2 goals conceded for Real Sociedad's defense in their 6 group stage games, and they have conceded a whopping 0 away from home. So, yeah, they might have had some issues, a little rocky form early on in La Liga, but this is Real Sociedad's only their 5th time in the Champions League. So they are very much you can call them a minnow of a group winner, and certainly one that I agree with you that I'm sure PSG was like, oh, thankfully, it's not Bayern Munich. Thankfully, it's not Manchester City again. But ultimately, this is tricky. And this is one of my favorite matchups of the group, of the round of 16. And I think this is immensely harder than what PSG might be preparing for. And right now, when you look at what PSG is preparing for, the bolt-on deals that they're talking about are Gabriel Mascardo, are Lucas Beraldo. Not necessarily players that are going to come in and hit the ground running upon transition. I'm not saying they're not talented enough, but there needs to be some. The Beraldo might, you're right, but there is a margin for error that needs to be accounted for if those are in fact the targets. Whereas Real Sociedad is very much team over individual, but they very much also have the individuals that can take over a game, like Takefusa Kubo or Oyarzabal. And I really love this matchup for that reason. But Luis Enrique knows Real Sociedad. He knows this isn't going to be easy. But very much so. I mean, would you say Luis Enrique's job depends on this?
It does.
I mean, he's got to at least make his way through round of 16. And, Kylian Mbappe's ancient now. He's 25 years old. 25 years. No, I'm just kidding. It's just amazing to me what you look at this and you think Marco Asensio, right? You think Kengan Lee. You think Gonzalo Ramos. You think Randall Kolo Muani, Ousmane Dembele. And behind Kylian Mbappe, Alex, who are the top goal scorers, assist providers, the top goal involvements for PSG? It's none of those guys. None of those attackers we just mentioned. It's 17-year-old Warren Zaire-Emery with 8 goal involvements. And if not him, it is Achraf Hakimi from right back, right, with 8 goal involvements. So PSG is very much a question mark. It's whether or not Kylian Mbappe and Achraf Hakimi and Warren Zaire-Emery can lead them through. And that's why I think this is more tilting in the direction. I'll go 60% Real Sociedad, 40% PSG for me.
I'll go 70% PSG, 30% Real Sociedad. Even though they have one of the best midfields in the world, Real Sociedad, it's Mbappe's duty as a legend of PSG with the team he has to beat this team of Real Sociedad. It must happen. Kylian Mbappe, 281 games for PSG, 231 goals and 100 assists. If he doesn't beat Real Sociedad, he will not be perceived as a bigger player than many other legends of France. No, I'm not saying PSG, but I'm saying France, because that's what Mbappe is competing to be the biggest legend in the French national team. That's the heritage. And you said Warren Zaire-Emery. Warren Zaire-Emery will start in the Euros. In the Champions League, he already has 3 assists, and it's one in Zaire Emery with Ugarte. Muscardo will come, but Muscardo will be on the bench because Ugarte is one of the best CDMs in the world, in my view. And Vitinha must learn a lot from that too. So I think PSG will have to go through in this one. But let us know in the comment section your thoughts on this one. It's a hard one. Napoli Barcelona, another game, another fixture that everything can happen, right, Breton? What are your thoughts on this one?
By far my favorite. By far my favorite matchup. They're unknowns in a lot of ways, right? I mean, they're both teams that were flying high for the most part last season that are now collecting and trying to overcome challenges, right? Both of them, Napoli has some goals scored. Obviously, they have the Victor Osimhen, Kvaratskhelia duo, but their defense, which was so formidable last season, has let them down this season, and they still have not, in my opinion, replaced Kim Min-jae.
Nothing.
On Barcelona's front,
nothing.
You have what? Well, yes, but he hasn't been playing well of late.
True.
Now that might change. He's still young. He has not been playing well. He has not been playing with the same consistency that Kim Min-jae has been getting slotted in at Bayern. And we have barely even talked about him at Bayern this season, but we can talk about him later on. But I don't think they've fully replaced him, and I don't think that they have the same form, obviously, from that back four. That they had last season. And remember, there was the Napoli effect last season in the Champions League where they were phenomenal, flying high for a little while. Then they got tired near the end. They got tired, right? It wasn't the same. Or people were starting to figure out Kvaratskhelia a little more. Osimhen was injured. There was a period of injury there. And it's the same heading into this. And Barcelona has very similar questions. I have to ask you, one of the biggest questions is whether or not Xavi's going to be around. Right? Now, I think he will, and I think it's completely nearsighted if there's anyone out there calling for Xavi to step down, because you're not going to go out and you're not going to find some ridiculous high-priced manager to come in to take over. It's likely going to be coming from within, like a Rafa Marquez or something that would take over Xavi. So very much a project, very much not a lot of financial power that they can work with from now until February. When they actually take the pitch. So 2 teams with big questions, 2 teams that do still have the individual talent and even talent as a team to make it far in this tournament. But all of us are looking at this going like, this isn't Barcelona that had only, 19 goals conceded or 20 goals conceded in the whole La Liga season last year. This is a very different one than that. And same with Napoli. Napoli just does not look good.
I think that's a bit of a short-term reaction to Ter Stegen being injured, Breton. Because if Ter Stegen is not present in goal, Inaki Peña is doing a phenomenal job. Obviously, Barca's defense will not be one of the best in La Liga. Ter Stegen is vital. Ronaldo Araújo, Conde, Christensen, Balde last season, and now they have Cancelo, a more offensive player at the back. So those are reasons that I believe are why Barca's conceding more goals. But they need to show more security, even though they've got Cancelo and Inaki Peña at the back. And doubts are being perceived to Xavi because of that. And again, Barca need a CDM and Barca need new wingers. It's embarrassing that Lamine Yamal is given so much of importance. He's very talented, but you can't give the responsibility to a 16, 17-year-old to win a Champions League and say it's normal. Because it's not normal to do. And Vitor Roque, there's real pressure on Vitor Roque, especially seeing what Hendrik is doing, what Hendrik did at Palmeiras. Vitor Roque is expected to arrive at Barca and immediately have an impact. I know Xavi said don't put too much pressure, but the pressure is inevitable when he costs 60 million and Barca's having a bad financial situation. He's the future of Brazil and every cooler wants him to be the future of Barca too. So I want to see time to shine. My biggest thing, I put Barca's 60% chance to go through against Napoli and Napoli 40%. But if Vitor Roque arrives and he's straight off the bat at home, like this is changes to 70-30 because what Barca misses is goals. And that's why Vitor Roque can be the big solution this season. The big signing.
Well,
the big signing.
I'll tell you what. Napoli was missing goals in that and this is definitely recency bias, Alex. I watched that Napoli Frosinone game, 4-0 loss
Oh.
in the Coppa Italia. And on top of that, I mean, you've already replaced Rudy Garcia, which both of us were in vehement agreement that he was not going to be the guy to take him forward right after they announced his name. Like, that's who you're going to follow Spalletti with.
Facts.
And then they bring in Walter Mazzari, and I haven't seen much of a shift. It's been early, but I think Napoli is going through a little bit of a change right now. I think Barcelona will take advantage of that. I think they're more of a tight-knit group, more of a team. They're all behind Xavi. The players most certainly are, even if top management is starting to ask questions at least. But yeah, I'm in agreement that Barcelona, I'm going to go more like 65-35 or 70-30 in favor of Barcelona. And that's not even with Vitor Roque needing to get off the ground or hit the ground running. I believe Lewandowski will give you a firm Harry Kane-like 10-15 games where he scores a whole boatload of goals for them this season. He might just need a break before he does it. And he'll get it with the winter fixtures, or the lack of winter fixtures.
And you're very right on pointing out the manager situation, because last season we had a Napoli with Spalletti that would do wonders. This season, I haven't seen any Napoli do wonders with the two managers that have been there. It can't happen, and now I'm absolutely sure that Victor Osimhen will be leaving Napoli. Because if these are the quality of managers that are coming, it makes it makes an easy decision for your future. I think Osimhen in January is a real discussion for him to be leaving. It's not Victor Gyökeres, which is also another discussion too that we can have another day. But Osimhen, I really believe he's going to be leaving, because we transitioning, and I want people want to understand why I'm transitioning to this thing. To this game, Inter against Atletico de Madrid, for me, is the best fixture in this Champions League draw. We have an Inter team that is absolutely flying, a really good project in which one of the best signings in this transfer window was Marcus Thuram. Okay, the quality of what they're getting. So I want to know, what are your predictions here, Breton?
Oh, I do have Inter. This is like Inter 52% to Atletico Madrid 48%. Inter is the more formidable team, the deeper squad. But I just think Atleti, they've got something that they haven't had for a while, and that's Morata firing on all cylinders. He's got 14 goals this season, and obviously you have Antoine Griezmann, who is now all-time leading goal scorer, and I don't think he's stopping anytime soon, just because he's 32 years old. I agree with you, Marcus Thuram, 18 goal involvements, 8 goals, 10 assists, probably the best free transfer, or one of the best free transfers of this past offseason. But this is, I mean, Inter probably had to be going like, what the heck? I mean, this is possibly the hardest of the bunch, or one of the hardest of the bunch. And it's dangerous, because it's amazing how little or how quickly things shift. A year ago, Alex, you and I and a lot of people were calling for Diego Simeone's head. I mean, they finished dead last, if I'm not mistaken, in a Champions League group that had Club Brugge, that had Leverkusen and Porto. Yeah. Am I right about that? I think I'm right about that. I don't know if it was winless, but they were dead last with 5 points, so they weren't winless. So I almost feel bad for these squads, because I think they both have. There were some odd results for Atleti, but I think both Inter and Atletico Madrid have deep enough squads that can compete and go very far in this. I mean, Inter could wind its way back into the final, and I think they're more of a possibility to win the tournament than they were last year. Ooh. And Atleti is Atleti. They play as a Simeone team, which on any given day can beat any other team in this mix. I am going to go 52 Inter, 48% Atleti.
Whoa, interesting one with that. And the transfers that Inter did this summer, Sommer, Thuram, Frattesi, great player, underrated in my view, national team player level. And in Serie A, Thuram, 16 games, 7 goals, and 9 assists. This is absolutely ridiculous. And a project of Inter, a successful project with European success too, going to a Champions League final, makes players like Lautaro, Di Marco, Bastoni, Barella, all wanting to stay. It's a club that knows how to do business. Lautaro wants to extend. Why? Because he has Marcus Thuram now. He's had Dzeko in the past. He's had Lautaro in the past. All great partnerships. Something that if you have good decision at the top, you have confidence from the players too. And Osimhen, that's why I'm saying he's not confident with Napoli's decision making of managers. That's the big difference. I believe it's 50%. I believe Inter Atletico is 50-50. I cannot decide, Bretson. It's a 50-50 matchup. Anything can happen. And I believe, look, if I had to put a bet, I'd still put on Inter. Because the left side of Inter with Di Marco and Bastoni is a threat. It's unstoppable in my view in terms of long passes. It's inevitable long pass always. And when you have Thuram and Lautaro, you're going to have a receiver. So let's see.
But it is amazing to me. I mean, if you look at Serie A and you look at, say, the metrics outside of points, right, you would think Inter has a Napoli-like hold on the Scudetto race right now. And they're only 4 points ahead, if I'm not mistaken, right? But they have a plus 32 goal differential. They've conceded 7 goals this season. And that's all down to Acerbi. It's down to DeMarco. It's down to Bastoni. It's down to Matteo Darmian. I mean, is having, a very, very serviceable season for them. And they're going to need to transfer, obviously, that type of form into the Champions League. But really, I mean, the only time their defense was sieve-like was at the Estadio da Luz against Benfica. And they came back relatively nicely to make that a competitive match. So, for me, it is Inter's defense and Lautaro versus Antoine Griezmann and Morata's continued form. Because behind them, Atleti has a very formidable team, but they don't necessarily have they don't have as many difference makers that Inter has. So that's why I go 52-48, but 50-50 is, I mean, let's be honest. It's a flip of a coin. And I feel bad for both squads.
I feel bad for Griezmann.
They both could go far.
I feel bad for Griezmann. Underrated, but we're still going to be reminded how good he is in the Euros because in the French national team, I'm sure it's going to be the last dance of Antoine Griezmann in the Euro competition. So it might not be 36. You never know. But for me, this is going to be the next fixture. For me, it's the easiest one to predict. Lazio against Bayern Munich. Why is it one of the easiest? Because for me, biggest contenders in the Champions League, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, and Man City. And Bayern Munich getting Lazio is a 90% chance for Bayern Munich to go through and a 10% chance for Lazio. Lazio's playing like a mid-table team right now in Serie A, okay? They're not impressing. They lost confidently to Inter. I watched that game. I was thinking to myself, they went through in the Champions League? What? How did that happen to Feyenoord? So this is my easiest prediction, saying Bayern Munich are gonna win this game are gonna go through easily against Lazio. But I just want to say one more thing: if Bayern Munich gets Rompellinha, they are for sure gonna be in the final, at least in the Champions League. People, Rompellinha, Joshua Kimmich, double pivot with a Sané, one of the best right wingers in the world, playing right now. Harry Kane, one of the best strikers, if not the best player in the world, playing right now in terms of form. Look, there's many reasons to pick a Bayern Munich team. And Tuchel. If Tuchel doesn't succeed big time in the Champions League this campaign, there's going to be doubters in Germany for the future of the best manager or the best possible role as a manager you can have in Germany. The responsibility of being the Bayern Munich coach is the best job you can have as a German citizen. It's an honor. And Tuchel has that honor. And right now, he's not the best manager in the Bundesliga. And Bayern fans are not used to that. They're not used to the sight of seeing Xabi Alonso and Leverkusen the best team in terms of style of play and the best manager. It's not Tuchel and Bayern Munich.
Well, there's a lot of financial muscle, and it's going to take quite a bit of that for them to get João Palhinha in the door,
It's
let
the
alone in the
Bavaria.
door in January.
It's the Bavaria.
In the door in January.
And you have the Euros coming. Like, you need a statement. And Harry Kane was 100 million.
It's true. And my goodness, Harry Kane, dude just doesn't slow down. 24 goals, 8 assists in 21 games for them this season. He's got a goal involvement every 55 minutes. He does not slow down, but he's going to not need to slow down against Lazio because he's still got to put away a Maurizio Sarri team that, yes, you're right, is more sorry than they are, I don't know, positive at the moment. But it's a battle of ex-Chelsea bosses, right? Maurizio Sarri versus Thomas Tuchel. And I agree with you that Bayern very much so are the stronger team. I'm going to give it more like 80% to Bayern Munich, 20% to Lazio, because I think obviously Copenhagen, as much as I love that squad, is less of a competition for Manchester City a little later on. But I don't know if we've ever put this out there. I'm sure we have at some point as it's ticked up, but it's a nice little round number for us to end this on. Bayern Munich, right, have now gone 6+ years, 40 games in the group stage without a loss. Without a loss in the Champions League. That consistency, I mean, that consistency is just insane to think about. Yeah, I wouldn't call it turmoil, but they've had their patches. They've had their rough patches. It doesn't seem like it when inevitably they wind up winning their 11th Bundesliga title and all that good stuff. And they keep, re-upping Thomas Müller until he's 56 years old. But it is a testament to, yes, as you mentioned, how much of a jewel in the crown of German football Bayern Munich is. Yeah. So I think if they bring in Palhinha, and they give Goretzka less time, they get Kimmich motoring because he has not been playing his best football, which is even more impressive. I would still love to see 19-year-old midfielder Alexander Pavlovic to get more time because I've enjoyed the little bit I've seen of him in Bayern's midfield. So I really think that if they don't get Palhinha, not that those guys are like for like, you will see Pavlovic more, a 19-year-old more, that has been essentially brought through that Bayern talent factory, and you will see him, I think, grow into a little bit of a star by the end of the season. So I'm hoping, not that I'm hoping for Palhinha not to come, but I really hope Pavlovic gets more time and maybe even sees some time in this tie. So craziness. I think Bayern does have what's needed to go far in this tournament, as we say every year. It's just a matter of keeping everybody healthy and adding one or two pieces.
It's true. If Harry Kane gets injured, Bayern Munich's chances decrease massively. And Harry Kane this season for club and country, he has 35 goal involvements until now. And he's the first player in 14 fixtures in the Bundesliga to get 20 goals. A reminder, the top goal scorer last season of the Bundesliga had 16 goals, and he's got +4, and he's still in December. Harry Kane is making history at Bayern Munich. And Bayern Munich represents Germany, but we got another team that is from Germany in the knockout stages too, and that team got the unfortunate news to play against Real Madrid. RB Leipzig, which I don't believe RB Leipzig will be going through against Real Madrid, but I think it's going to be a good audition to the world for Xavi Simons, Dani Olmo, and Openda. There's a lot of talent in this RB Leipzig team, and be aware, because they're going to be rocking Real Madrid in the Bernabeu. But again, I think Real Madrid will be going through. Fast transitions.
I agree. I agree with you, but I think it's going to be closer than people give it credit for. They gave him hell several years ago, if I remember correctly, in a group stage. I believe they beat Real 3-2. Josko Gvardiol was on the score sheet, Timo Werner, and probably Nkunku. I can't remember, but I bet it was Nkunku that was also on the score sheet there. So they have the ability to be a bit of a rabble-rouser. And we also need to remember that this is a Red Bull squad, so they will be spending, and I know that Elmas is likely going to be coming in, as Fabrizio Romano has already reported, for 25 million, and that's probably just scraping the surface there. They also have signings that have not quite settled in just yet. And I'm not talking about Xavi Simons because he is more than settled. But that's why I'm going to give them a little more of a chance. And I am going to go say 25% RB Leipzig, 75% Real Madrid. And here's the other reason why, Alex. Real Madrid does have a little bit of a defensive issue. After finding out that David Alaba will be out the rest of the season. Thibaut Courtois is not just out the rest of the season. Huge problem. Thank you. Okay, I understated it. But Thibaut Courtois is not just out the rest of the season. He is out for Euros as well, which is really, really sad. And Eder Militao is an issue. So as it stands, you've got Antonio Rudiger. Their best La Fabrica center back, Marvel, I think, is also out for the next 2-3 months. So he's not necessarily an option for them. They might need to call somebody back from loan that they don't have, who's at Alaves. I think it's Marin, that they have on loan at Alaves. They are likely going to need to bring in defensive help, they're going to need to make Tchouaméni a center back for the rest of the season. And I don't think he's going to like that. I mean, I know they got Nacho, but it is you're right. I understated it to begin. I got to ramp up the hyperbole here. It is a defensive crisis at Real Madrid.
Not a hyperbole, a reality. Yeah. Real Madrid have a massive center back problem. You got Rudiger and Nacho as starters when you have Alaba out, Eder Militao out, and Courtois out with ACL injuries. Injuries that when you return, you're not back to your usual self. You take 2 to 3 weeks minimal. And their expected return is right when the Champions League big knockout games are going to happen. So they need to sign a center back. Gonçalo Inácio, 144 games for Sporting. He's got experience. He's a young buck. And I think at Real Madrid, he could make something happen. But don't have the expectation that he's Alaba or Eder Militao straight off the bat. But he can make something happen with the necessity that is there. Antonio Silva will be a lot more expensive than Gonçalo Inácio. But I'd get Gonçalo Inácio. And mentioning Real Madrid too. Real Madrid and Man City are the only two teams that have 100% win victories in the group stage. That had only happened, counting those two teams, 13 times in the Champions League. So we are witnessing historic squads in the Champions League with these two teams. And Real Madrid are in a new era. Last season, they had the Ballon d'Or winner, Benzema, which big respect to Ancelotti to make a team like that for Benzema. And now, big respect to Ancelotti for making a team like he's doing for Jude Bellingham. Because Jude Bellingham is the best player in the world right now because of Ancelotti. 20 games, 17 goals, and 5 assists. So, we are dependent on what Ancelotti does with whatever situation Real Madrid's in the Champions League right now.
I don't remember specifically what Ancelotti said, but it was near the beginning of the season, or it might have only been a game or two into the season when Jude Bellingham scored one of his first goals. And he simply said, you don't necessarily have a striker, right? Joselu, right? And the fact that he already knew at that point that he wasn't going to need one because he had Jude Bellingham, right? Not necessarily a striker, but the fact that he can, shuttle between the two, call it a false nine, whatever the hell you want to call it. But I don't know when Ancelotti was making that statement if he thought that, 20 games in, Jude Bellingham would have 17 goals, 5 assists, and be leading the race for the Pichichi, right? Yeah. So it is I think he knew pretty prescient. I think he might have. I mean, Carlo Ancelotti obviously will go down as one of the best managers of all time for that reason. And the defensive crisis that they've got here is just one more beautiful challenge that Carlo Ancelotti will have to overcome before he leaves the Bernabeu. And I think they will. I think January is not normally when they spend their money, but because it's such a crisis, they will. It's whether or not they go for a long-term project. I mean, I know Gonçalo Inácio is good enough to provide quality day one, but he is still very much a long-term piece. Or maybe you go to Manchester United and you say, like, you don't really like Rafael Varane. Can we have him back? Just give us him. We'll take him on loan and we'll pay you whatever, 5-10 million. Because Manchester United doesn't have as much financial muscle this offseason or this winter than people are.
They might go to Liga and get Lenny Yoro like they did in the past with Varane in law. Yeah. I can see that happen maybe.
Yeah, but I could see also him. I could see him getting eaten up in this round of 16 matchup if that's the case.
Well, it's true.
I mean, Lenny
Varane was young at the time.
It's true. It's true. I think Varane on loan. Wouldn't it be hysterical though if they went in and they said, Harry Maguire.
No.
You haven't really enjoyed him in your side that much. He gets verbally abused day in day out. Here's 20 million.
No, Real Madrid.
That
would be such a game-changing move for Maguire and for Real Madrid too. But yes, Ancelotti. I really believe that Ancelotti might be extending one more year for Real Madrid, Bretson. Because you see Valverde, you see Camavinga, you see Vinicius Junior. But Valverde massively is understated how good he's developed with Ancelotti. Like even saying that goal tally, Ancelotti was saying, Valverde's going to score more than 10 goals or I retire. Yep. And that happened. I think he does the same with Bellingham. And I think Real want the same for Hendrik too. It's key that the Hendrik development is right to get a world-class player at the end of it. So I believe Real Madrid against Leipzig, I'll give an 80% chance for Real Madrid to go through to 20 because Jude Bellingham is the best player in the Champions League. And for sure, he will not want his team, the Galactico team, with 14 Champions League won to go out, which it won't be the case. Another fixture here where, this one is very difficult. PSV Dortmund. There's PSV Dortmund too, which 16 games, 16 wins PSV right now, 100% victorious. I know Bayer Leverkusen are unbeaten in all competitions, but come on, 100% victories in the league when you have Feyenoord that won the league last season and is 10 points away, and they kept the star striker Santiago Gimenez. It's mad, and it's Luke de Jong and it's Peter Bosch ball, which, look, Dortmund fans, be aware.
Well, Dortmund fans are aware. They believe that Peter Bosch ball does not exist because you might recall back in 2017, Peter Bosch was in charge of Borussia Dortmund and didn't last. Didn't last more than half a season. And I also think he was the architect, unfortunately, of going winless in the Champions League group stage. But there's so many undercurrents here, right? Because it is Peter Bosch ball, but Peter Bosch ball is dependent on guys like Joey Veerman, dependent on 33-year-old right now, Luke de Jong, who is on pace to have one of his best seasons of all time. And that is saying something, considering that Luke de Jong, if I'm not mistaken, back in, what year was that? 2017, 2018, when Ajax was just unbeatable. He had 28 goals. He was the co-Golden Boot leader with Dusan Tadic back then. And they were plus 70 goal differential that year, and they lost to Ajax in the Eredivisie. So Luke de Jong is on pace for that. He's already got 19 goals, 9 assists in 26 games at 33 years old. And sure, they have a wonderful backup in Ricardo Pepi, but Luke de Jong needs to be this Luke de Jong if they're going to get by Borussia Dortmund. And I have been very vocal about not enjoying Edin Terzic's Borussia Dortmund, and I am actually going to state something right now. I don't think it's going to be Edin Terzic on the sideline when they meet in February. I really don't. I don't.
And Peter Bosch will be at PSV for sure with that 100% victorious register in the league.
So I'm going to go here. It's close. It's very close. And the one thing that that has saved his job, Terzic, is that they've been able to scrape out results. It's not quite in the Bundesliga now. Magic is running out there. But definitely in the Champions League, because I'm pretty certain none of us had penciled in group winners in that group. Right. So 100 miles separate these two cities. So that's like the fun part of this thing. I mean, Europe's pretty close together, close knit all together anyway. But it is a really, really fun matchup here because you've got one side that used to have a high-flying offense that doesn't anymore, but they've got Füllkrug and then Haller and some exciting talents that can pop up every now and again. And then you've got a really high-flying, high-octane offense under Peter Bosch. And I don't know what to tell you in this case,
Whoa.
except that I really think PSV Eindhoven will beat Borussia Dortmund, and I will put it at 65% in PSV's camp, 35% in Borussia Dortmund.
Ooh, I'll put 55% on Dortmund and 45 on PSV, but I think PSV is going to be winning. If I was going to put the bet, I'll put it on PSV because I absolutely love Joey Veerman, Luke De Jong with 12 goals and 7 assists in the league, and Johan Bakayoko, one of the best under 21 wingers in the world right now. It's not a bold statement. It's a fact. 13 assists this season in all competitions. And look, if I am Liverpool, Salah's leaving, I'd consider Johan Bakayoko a baller in this PSV team. And for the Belgium national team, it's Doku and Bakayoko putting passes to Lukaku. So let us know down below your percentages all until now. And obviously the PSV Dortmund that we have just stated. Last game. No, we got to remind ourselves of Man City against Copenhagen, okay? Copenhagen deserves to be in the position they're at. They did eliminate Galatasaray and Man United. Galatasaray was even perceived as the third best team of that group, and Copenhagen still pulled it through. So, really good job, Copenhagen.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Galatasaray going through with this. So the fact that it is Copenhagen is pretty awesome. I just, again, feel bad for them that they pull Manchester City.
But Breton, I think Copenhagen would
yes.
beat Lazio in a game.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you beat Manchester United or draw Manchester United or beat either
They
one.
beat Manchester United. Rooney
they
Bargi,
beat
match
Manchester
winner.
Yeah, and what the only sad thing I have is that their starting 11 has not necessarily featured a lot of their younger guys. I think one of the youngest guys in the 11 right now is Elias Gillert, who's a very good fullback that could wind up being in Serie A or in the Bundesliga, his next step. But you've got names, right, that you've heard of along the way here, and their goalkeeper is huge. It's Camille Grabara, and he has been absolutely big for them. And he's going to literally need to stand on his head if they're going to have any chance of Manchester City not getting by them. But they have so many fun players here. You already mentioned Rooney Bargi. There's the Højlund brothers. Oscar's closest to the 11. They have another Icelandic center forward, Ori Oskarsson, that'll probably make a move from here on out. I just don't know if there's enough firepower here to get through two legs. If this was one leg, I'd say, hey, you never know. But two legs here, Pep might even
Can I ask you something, Breton?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are Man City more likely to win the Champions League or the Premier League, in your opinion?
Ooh. Yeah, the draw is the draw is everything. I still think that they have equal shot to win both. I think we are blowing this recent one win in 6 games out of proportion.
I think
maybe by a little bit.
I think they're maybe more likely, Man City, to win the Champions League than the Premier League this season, Breton. Really? I know this Liverpool-Arsenal game this weekend will definitely be a big game to decide these types of statements. But still, Kevin De Bruyne this season in the Champions League, 0 games. And we have felt that difference in the Man City team, in the Prem and in the Champions League for sure. Right now, Haaland has 5 goals scored in the Champions League. He finished last season with 12 goals. When De Bruyne kicks in, he will for sure be surpassing this mark. But my question is, how good will he be in the Premier League and Champions League? And I believe he will be better in the Champions League, Erling Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne.
Okay. Are you factoring into that, a execution of a great signing? For Pep Guardiola and City, or are you just based on their current roster and the fact that De Bruyne will come back, he's back in training, and so is Haaland for that matter. So that's good to see, stress reaction wise. But you are not banking on them necessarily strengthening their roster heading into these knockout rounds.
The midfield, I have doubts, but the left back for sure. They have to get Valentin Barco or another left back, Man City. They're desperate. Who they have, they for sure will have more limitations than signing another left back, and they have the money to do that. So I would do just that. And De Bruyne coming back will that is more than enough. Because when De Bruyne comes back, and John Stones too. John Stones and Rodri, that was the big tactical change that made Man City win the Champions League. John Stones, Rodri, De Bruyne, Alvarez off the bench, Grealish, Foden, Bernard Silva, Haaland. They're absolutely stacked. And I know there's no Mahrez, a big difference, but there is Doku. Doku that we absolutely love here at FC Wonderkid. A baller that is going to represent the future of Belgium. So, yeah, I think maybe they're more likely to win the Champions League, Breton.
But here is what does support your comment there, right? And why I would probably agree with it. I mean, Manchester City did get one hell of a rosy draw here. That is not disrespecting Copenhagen in any way, shape, or form. They are very much the minnows when it comes to this. But you're 100% correct in that the fact that they deserve to be in this particular position. But Manchester City, if we were talking about February, 13th or 14th is like the first leg. If we were talking about getting De Bruyne up and running to speed by that point, and they were facing instead PSG, a little bit of a different conversation we might be having here. Now, I'd still have Manchester City as a favorite in that case, but obviously Kylian Mbappe can kill a game by himself when he so chooses. So that is where I know a lot of people are crowing online, maybe even rightfully so, as to how Manchester City not only got a relatively rosy group stage, they also get the rosiest of round of 16 opponents. So that does make maybe your Champions League. It gives De Bruyne a better, maybe less problematic first round matchup for him to get back into the swing of things.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
So,
and he will be playing for sure, because Man City will be playing their first team in these knockout stages. It's all about rhythm and the team knowing where to be and just getting used to it. And they don't have rhythm right now. And that's why a lot of people, a lot of pundits are doubting if Man City will win the Premier League with Arsenal playing like this, and Liverpool too, that is showing a much better team than last season. But Champions League.
The festive fixtures change people, Alex. The festive fixtures change people. I mean, the games come so fast and furious. Isn't this where Arsenal started to turn to the downside last year?
It's true, but
or
there was
a little
no
later
Declan Rice, and there was a party that would get injured on and off. The biggest difference,
100% true.
Biggest difference now at Arsenal. But let us know, what are your differences with our percentages for Man City 90% and Copenhagen 10%? Just ending on that.
I'm right there with you. 90-10 sounds right.
90-10. Oh, and Lazio would lose to Copenhagen. Okay, Copenhagen fans, if you're listening, comment down below if you agree or disagree with all the predictions we said. We know it's early predictions and before a phenomenal transfer window that is coming, but we still want to know your thoughts. Like this video for more videos just like this, and thank you so much, community, for going bold in another video on YouTube. Thank you, people.